Okay, Kraven, say the thing.
Light the fires.
Marvel's Spider-Man 2 had lots of excitement behind it after the successes of Marvel's Spider-Man PS4 and Spider-Man Miles Morales. The excellent voice actors are back, the score is amazing, so much really cool stuff in the game. However, the story is lacking compared to the prior two games, and I think our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man has a lot to answer for.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Venom is often seen as the weakest link in the story, despite being one of the major selling points. To understand why Venom doesn't work, we'll have to talk about the symbiote plotline as a whole and how Harry's character is portrayed. Venom himself is a very shallow villain, despite being the main villain and a huge selling point of the story. His goals start and end with wanting to take over the world, and Harry is manipulated into thinking he's healing the world. Because of this, there's not much to unpack with Venom as a character. There's no interesting conversation Venom has with Spider-Man about his ideology or with Harry himself. He's just treated as a puppet brought along for the symbiote's goals. On its face, this isn't necessarily non-functional, but it's a noticeable step down from the previous attempts Insomniac has made to develop their villains. They've generally been successful in creating layered antagonists that challenge the ideals of the hero in unique ways that we can only imagine these characters doing. Mr. Negative carried out a plan to destroy everything Norman cares about in a way where Norman would blame himself, so he's forced to experience the guilt and pain that Martin Lee did when he lost his parents as a child, fitting into the demon's idea of maintaining balance. As long as the anger consumed him, the temptations to become the demon grew stronger until he surrendered control to avenge his parents. Doc Ock shares a similar desire for revenge, but he's less honest about himself than Lee is. The story provides hints that Otto was never a good person, but rather he acted as one until he no longer had anything to gain from it. Everything was about himself, and he stopped caring to hide that once he had the power to enact the revenge that he always wanted to and surpass those who ever dared to challenge him. His grand plan was more so focused on putting himself on a pedestal to slap down Norman, as opposed to punishing him out of a misplaced sense of justice. Both of these villains challenge Spider-Man's ideals, whether his sense of justice is suitable and fair, or if it's too naive and unrealistic. In contrast, the Tinkerer is someone who tried to stand up against injustice the right way. She did everything she was supposed to do as a law-abiding citizen, but that only took her brother away from her. We're left with a desperate character who turns to crime and terrorism in order to force Roxxon to pay for their crimes. The question of what brings true justice becomes more difficult when we have a villain who tried to do this the right way, the way Spider-Man believes in, but got punished for doing so. While Peter's villains were previously mentors of his, Miles' villain was seen as a family member of his. There's a closer connection there, which makes it easier for Miles to reach and eventually reform his enemy, resulting in her choice to die to save Miles and all of Harlem. With Harry Osborn as Venom, nothing about his plan or end goal feels personal to him like with these other villains. Any generic villain could execute Venom's plan. Ultimately, the symbiote is using Harry as a puppet and lying to him about what they're going to do. So much that Harry is shown to be unaware of what's happening while the plan is being enacted. So it doesn't matter who's in the suit, as long as the symbiote gets to use them as a puppet. Venom already fails to be a compelling antagonist, and is too one-dimensional to fit as the main villain of the story. To make matters worse, Venom's problems extend beyond making him one-dimensional. The entire symbiote plotline, and I have proof of this, doesn't make any sense, to the point that the motivations and plans of the symbiote fail to maintain a consistent through line. This is applicable even before Venom coins his name, so we'll have to start at the very beginning. Very early on, Harry is wearing the symbiote, and he eventually discovers its abilities at Coney Island. He even becomes Agent Venom to help Spider-Man fight crime. He does nothing but try to make the right choices and help everyone he can. So the question you're probably asking yourself is why Harry isn't being corrupted by the symbiote in the same way we see with Peter, alongside Harry when he becomes Venom. Nobody can say for sure because the game never addresses this. Harry shows zero signs of corruption or any changes in personality. I've seen people speculate that because the symbiote shows interest in Peter, the symbiote chose not to corrupt Harry, and while it's true the symbiote seems interested in Spider-Man, this comes with its own set of questions. Why is the symbiote interested in Spider-Man specifically? The most likely reason I can think of is that Spider-Man is powerful and can help the symbiote take over the world. If that's true, then why doesn't the symbiote simply direct Peter to the symbiote rock and use it to take over the world? It really wouldn't be difficult to manipulate Peter into this, given his motivation to use the symbiote in the first place.
All I wanted was to save everyone! MJ! May!
Peter is currently worried about Harry dying. He immediately wanted to separate himself from the suit to save Harry, so why not tell him that more symbiotes can be made to help Harry and cure people of diseases? Peter agreed with Harry's ideal of wanting to heal the world, so there's no reason why Peter shouldn't be manipulated this way the same way Harry was. The plan to take over the world should already have been successful by the time Peter bonded with the symbiote and was looking for a way to save Harry, but for some bizarre reason, the symbiote never brings this up to Peter. Another ideal time to do this would be when Miles is trying to convince Peter to let go of the suit. If the symbiote simply brought up that Harry and everyone else could be healed by additional symbiotes, there really isn't much Miles could do to snap Peter out of it. You're not going to convince a symbiote-corrupted Peter not to use other symbiotes to save Harry alongside any other victims of deadly diseases. Instead of corrupting Peter in this manner, the symbiote seems more focused on getting Peter to kill his enemies and become more isolated from the world. The symbiote also makes Spider-Man incredibly reckless and violent in a manner that makes the city question if he's doing more harm than good. The symbiote even tries to murder MJ, which would definitely cause a rift between Peter and the symbiote despite its attempts to manipulate him. There's so much to say about this already. What motivation does the symbiote have to kill these enemies? If we're supposed to believe the Rock will grant them access to mind-controlling symbiotes, then the symbiote shouldn't have to worry about any resistance. You can subdue any villain this way and have them obey the primary symbiote, and if the symbiote's interest in Spider-Man is because he's powerful, then why wouldn't this draw the same interest in controlling supervillains like Kraven? You know, someone who almost killed Spider-Man and would have succeeded without the symbiote. On top of this, why would the symbiote want to isolate Peter from his loved ones when this is what enables the symbiote to manipulate him? The death of Aunt May made him more willing to submit to the symbiote, so he would surely be less submissive if the symbiote is at fault for killing MJ. This would also make Spider-Man a public enemy if he's responsible for murdering a renowned journalist. They may not know the intentions of Spider-Man's actions, but at the same time, I don't know the intentions of an unattended fire hose, so I just do what I can not to be splashed. Imagine if this brought attention from the Avengers, that one of the most active superheroes has turned on the city. I imagine that the symbiote's decision to not immediately leave Harry and bond with Peter, despite clearly wanting to, is that it wants to find some kind of excuse to bond with Peter, which Peter's almost death sufficed for. So, the symbiote must have basic self-awareness for how its actions could be seen. After all, that's the basis for effective manipulation. So the symbiote not accounting for how murdering someone could backfire is baffling to me, especially since this would interfere with its plan to take over the world. Not to mention that the symbiote makes Peter not want to save Miles. His mom needs to pressure Peter into prioritizing Miles.
Peter, where is Miles? He didn't come home last night and he's not answering my calls. Hello? I'm at my office. Tell him to come see me. Now.
Why can't anyone take care of themselves?
So, how did the symbiote manipulate Peter again?
All I wanted was to save everyone! MJ! May!
Everything surrounding the symbiote by this point doesn't work. None of its decisions make sense with its motivations. This is half of who Venom is, and it already doesn't work. The other half relies on Harry, and his drive to heal the world is what allows him to be manipulated. Before he bonds with the symbiote, his friendship with Peter starts to drift. He believes that Peter was going to let him die because he never gave him back the suit. But the drama starts to feel artificial once you realize that Peter is being controlled by the symbiote, and Harry knows this. He's there when MJ tells Peter this, and he presumably knows about the attempt on MJ's life. He must know that Peter isn't acting himself because an alien is controlling his thoughts. With this knowledge, I imagine he'd want to get the symbiote off him using the many resources he has. Although he'd have more reason to do this if he did blame Peter for his actions, he still has reason to try this now, considering he would want his friend back, and his other friend almost got killed by Peter. So how could he pull this off? Well, for starters, tell Norman about this. They could work together to set a trap for Peter, knowing his weaknesses to sound. This would also make it easier to remove the symbiote by force. And if MJ believes that the symbiote is controlling Peter, she would be willing to help Harry force the symbiote off by setting a trap for Peter. So, already, his reasons to hate Peter seem very flimsy, and he barely puts in an effort to get Peter to lose the symbiote and help save his own life. After Peter removes the symbiote, he goes to Oscorp with the intent to destroy it. At that point, his anger towards Peter makes more sense because he's out of the suit and he's about to destroy the one thing that Harry believes will save him. He becomes Venom and starts attacking Oscorp security in very lethal ways. He seems to just be going all out, and he shows Kraven that same energy and eventually kills him. This leads Harry to show remorse and reflect on what he's done.
What did I just do?
It's really strange how Harry never felt this regret for murdering the Oscorp security guards that weren't even trying to kill him, but he immediately does after killing a supervillain that was constantly causing him problems. Did Harry have nothing to say about the symbiote body slamming these guards and risking civilian casualties on the street despite wanting to heal the world? And the symbiote addresses this concern by saying they're going to heal everyone and turn everyone into violent monsters that attack people, and this somehow convinces him.
We are not, Harry. We are.
This line, and I have proof of this, doesn't even work for this character. Now, the reason this works in the comics and prior adaptations is because their motivations and upbringing align with this new identity that Eddie and the symbiote have established. Venom is a reflection of Eddie's vengefulness after feeling he was wronged by Spider-Man.
From now on, we're poison to you, Spider-Man. That's why we call ourselves Venom.
From now on, we're poison to Peter Parker and Spider-Man. We're Venom!
We're going to heal the world. That's why we call ourselves Venom? You see why this doesn't work with this version? MJ is then turned into Scream, and Venom just leaves Spider-Man there to deal with this. I don't know why his first target isn't the two Spider-Men, since they have information on what weakens the symbiotes and could easily utilize it in battle. Anyone with dangerous information like this should be Venom's first targets. It shouldn't take long for Venom to track either of them down and infect them with the symbiote, and by the end, Venom should know that Scream is down due to the hive mind. So why not give MJ another symbiote until Peter quits? Later, we see Venom getting mad at Norman's refusal to accept him, so much that he tosses him away in anger, nearly killing him. We learn that he's at Connors' lab to obtain the other part of the rock to assemble it into one. To do so, he tries to force Connors into helping him. I don't know why any of this is necessary if Venom can just infect people with symbiotes. Norman would accept Harry if he was wearing a symbiote, and Dr. Connors would give him whatever he needed if he was wearing a symbiote. The entire point of infecting all of these people is so they agree with his ideas. I guess Harry would rather kill his father than try to get him on board with his plan, when from his perspective, he has done nothing but try to help him, and Harry couldn't have gotten the symbiote without Norman. Now, if we recall earlier, Harry was left under the impression that Peter was going to let him die. That's what motivated his final anger towards Peter. Peter is still trying to remove the symbiote from him, which he believes will kill him.
I saved your life? And you won't save mine? Do you want me to die?
I finally have the power to realize our vision. Are you giving up on me?
But at some point, he switches up on this and decides that he can't finish his mission without Peter by his side.
We can give that gift to everyone. But we need you with us, Peter. This is where we became best friends.
Yeah, it is.
And now it's where we become brothers.
Why does he want to become brothers with someone he believes betrayed him and was willing to let him die? What is the point of writing an interpersonal drama where Harry feels betrayed by Peter only for him to randomly forgive him and act as if his mission isn't complete without becoming brothers with him? How does that make any sense? What really should be happening is that Harry doesn't think Peter is his bro anymore, so he acts resentful and spiteful.
Don't do this, bro!
We're not brothers! You abandoned us while we were fighting for our lives.
I was trying to save you!
Feel like that to us.
Then why did you want him on your team so badly? Why is he your brother? Apparently Harry was willing to almost kill his dad for rejecting him, but wants Peter to become his brother despite also rejecting him.
We've never been good enough for you or Dad.
This idea was never developed in the series of games. As far as we've seen with Norman Osborn, he truly cared about Harry and fought relentlessly to save him. He took the biggest risks to save him, hence the creation of Devil's Breath. And every single time Norman was on screen with Harry, he showed nothing but love towards him. There's not a single scene where he shows genuine neglect towards Harry, so this line comes out of nowhere and relies on us remembering other adaptations that actually put the legwork to develop this. This deep-rooted envy comes from nowhere. The most you can possibly possibly reference is the fact that Harry saw Norman hugging Peter, but that's not showing neglect towards Harry. If Norman also cares about Peter, then he's going to show love towards him as well. This doesn't show him neglecting Harry. Beforehand, Norman was trying to save Harry, and got frustrated when his attempts were failing. These moments of Harry voicing his past frustrations don't work if we don't see anything in his scenes to support this. There were never any hints in the story that Harry could actually turn to villainy based on personal grievances. This was done much better in the first game, where we see hints of Otto's rage building over time, alongside his willingness to cross lines, such as showing his constant anger towards Norman every time they interact. We actually see Norman screwing him over, and the direct consequences of this. We never see Norman acting neglectful of Harry or telling him that he isn't good enough. We actually hear Otto talk about the City Hall bombing, and comment on how it may have been a good thing to wake up Osborn's supporters. We have so much to work with to support Otto's turn, yet we have basically nothing with Harry.
The meteorite. You took it from us.
Yeah, he took it from you after you showed him a vision of where the location is. Did you not expect him to do anything with that information? Why are you surprised that he tried something like this? Earlier, Peter baited Venom out of the cave so the rock was exposed, when Miles easily could have arrived to help steal the rock. Setting aside how dumb it was for Venom to reveal this and not expect Peter to act on it, he should already know anyway because Miles and MJ showed up to attack the symbiotes. If they're connected through the hive mind, Venom should already know there's an attempt to steal the rock. This gets Venom so mad that he randomly grows wings out of his back and flies away very easily, as if he doesn't have to train or practice an entirely new method of traversal. This is just silly, out of nowhere, and it feels like ideas were just being thrown onto this character while rushing the climax of the story.
Give me back my friend!
We are your friend.
Pete, what's happening?
Just hang on, buddy!
Please, no.
Leave him alone!
I don't understand. Is Harry on board with this or not? I know we're meant to believe he's a puppet by the end, but earlier they clearly established that Harry needed to be convinced and manipulated into what the symbiote wants. This requires him to be culpable, yet now he's ignorant to what's happening. Why even bother manipulating Harry if you can just take control? Why does it even matter that Harry is Venom if he's just a puppet that's being forced into this? What traditionally makes Venom unique is that Eddie Brock's hatred and refusal of accountability formed a unique identity around poisoning Spider-Man. At the same time, Eddie has a moral code, where he doesn't attack people he believes are innocent, hence the Lethal Protector label. Only Eddie Brock could make Venom act the way that he does. So, what's so special about Harry being the host when we're meant to believe that Venom would act this way no matter who wears the suit? After all, that's what the army of symbiotes shows us.
Fight, Harry! Fight!
I can't. I'm done. You have to
Kill us.
Okay, so Harry is now in favor of destroying the symbiote even if that means he dies, but the entire reason he was mad at Peter was because he wanted to destroy the symbiote since it was too dangerous, which would remove Harry's only means of surviving his disease. Did Harry not know the symbiote would be dangerous and would get people hurt? I don't see why not when Venom knocked out Spider-Man, killed Oscorp security, and almost got people killed in Times Square. And in the black suit, Peter almost killed MJ. He constantly had violent outbursts and was clearly out of control. So it's not like Harry didn't know something like this would happen. He was shown it after all. What changed?
I'm done. Either way, Pete.
No. We still have time?
No, we don't. It'll kill them. And then it'll kill you.
How could Harry know this? The entire point was that the symbiote was withholding the fact that it just wants to take over the world by claiming it wants to heal the world. How could Harry know that the symbiote is going to kill them all? The symbiote would have blocked that from his mind, and the fact that the symbiote is willing to kill Peter and his loved ones goes to show that it's just a one-note monster that wants to take over the world. And seeing that the symbiote doesn't care and would kill them in a heartbeat, what was stopping it from forcing Harry to do this earlier in the story? Why didn't Venom just kill Peter and Miles from the start instead of wasting time constantly confronting them? We're meant to believe that the symbiote truly doesn't care and can just control Harry against his wishes. None of this makes sense and leaves us with a very confused ending. All of this takes away from the emotional impact of his almost death, because the ideas for his character were filled with so much conflicting information that we're left with a villain who was underdeveloped, incoherent, and just a confusing mess to follow. The constant flip-flopping with his morals, his values, and who he cares about severely hurts his characterization. Venom as a villain is broken to the core, so much that I actually don't want to see the black suit or Venom in anything ever again. At least for a while. The next villain I'd like to talk about is Mr. Negative. My biggest problem with his inclusion in the story is that while he has the potential to be reformed, they rush it very early on, because we don't actually see the process of Martin Li defeating the demon within him. We don't see how he overcomes his darker half and fully decides that he was in the wrong, that his sense of justice was skewed.
Can feel my power growing, feeding off my anger. Father would say I've lost the path of balance, that he could never understand. The only way to fight a monster is to become one.
I won't die as the man that I was!
You don't get to walk away from what you did. The inner demons, devil's breath, the city hall bombing.
Don't recount my sins to me! I know what I can.
Looks like serving time didn't change you at all.
You're wrong.
I owe him my life. And much more.
What happened that made Lee realize that there was another way to fight the demon within him? What realization did he come to? By the start of Spider-Man 2, he already believes he's wrong for what he did the first time we see him. He doesn't even want to try to get Norman killed. The most potential Lee has to regret his actions is for the innocent people that got hurt, since they were only put in the crossfire as a means of hurting Norman in a way that adds culpability to his side. You may get Lee convinced that involving innocents was a step too far, and I can believe that, but you will never convince him that Osborn doesn't deserve to die for what he did to him as a child, at least not without immense efforts. The anger he feels is what grows his power, and the fact that Martin Li displays no interest in getting back at Norman is a huge problem for his character in the story. He doesn't even mention Norman at all in the story. We have to remember that Martin Li didn't want to be evil, he wanted to be good, and for the best of him to be remembered and carried on through May. The reason he didn't seek help for his condition was because he wanted revenge on Norman Osborn above all else, and it was too hard for him to fight the demon because of the negative side of him.
They're all claiming Martin Li has the power to, quote, corrupt people.
Corrupt? What does that mean?
They say it's sort of like mind control. It brings out the negative part of you. It makes you do things you wouldn't normally do.
But without an explanation, Mr. Negative has overcome that negative part of him despite getting no closure on his desire to get revenge on Norman.
I spent years of my life consumed with vengeance and lost everything for it. You two reminded me that that's not who I am. When you help someone, you help everyone.
Where are you gonna go?
To set things right. Your way.
This is another big problem. Why does Martin Li suddenly believe in Spider-Man's way? Let's not forget that Norman Osborn didn't face justice for his crimes after the first game, where Spider-Man has promised that he will if they do things his way, and we will get to that later.
Osborn needs to pay.
I know, but this is the wrong way, Martin.
Norman still gets to live in his penthouse as a rich man while running successful businesses. Despite his crimes and mistreatment of others, he gets to live in luxury. Lee never got closure on his pursuit of justice for his parents and his vendetta against Norman. So why would he change and believe in Spider-Man's way? Why does he believe this will bring the justice his parents deserve? In his eyes, doesn't this just seem like a broken promise from Spider-Man? Spider-Man spends all of this time talking about punishing Norman the right way, yet Norman doesn't get punished for killing his parents.
The project breaks every state and federal regulation on the books, but he doesn't care.
If the city finds out, he can kiss re-election goodbye.
Never mind re-election. He'd be tried in The Hague for war crimes.
It also seems like they forgot how Martin Li's powers work. Yeah, he can get in your head and communicate with you, but he can't look into your private information or memories like what happens with Miles and Peter.
What are you doing to me?
Taking a look into your soul, I see a boy, terrified of being alone, of failing his family. So, your name is Miles. Who are you really, Miles?
Get down here, Lee!
Let's dig deeper.
Where are we anyway?
We are inside Spider-Man's mind.
That's not how Martin Li's powers worked in the first game. He can't get into your mind and discover your secret identity. If he could do that, he would have done this to Peter in the first game and learned that he was Spider-Man, and he wouldn't need to ask people questions when he corrupts them.
His name, Dr. Morgan Michaels.
Why bother with the questioning if he can just look into their mind now?
I was waiting for you at City Hall. You never came. Where were you?
Lee wants to know why Spider-Man didn't show up as he planned. He would have realized it was because he accidentally knocked him out because he happened to show up at the ceremony. While his powers being inconsistent is a plot issue, this also harms the intelligence of his character because of how he uses his powers. Next up, we have Tombstone. When we're introduced to him in this game, he's already a reformed villain. He's just a chill guy serving at Coney Island. This is already unbelievable for this character. In the first game, Lonnie was described as the one villain who would always smile after a defeat.
End of the day, this is what I love. Great fight, great challenge. Oh! That's new.
Too much to hope you'll be taking it easier now that you're, mortal?
Not a chance. Threat of death just ups the thrill. Hell of a left hook. Can't wait for the rematch.
I can.
I like you.
Tombstone runs towards the fight because he enjoys it. He torments his enemies for fun and moves on for more fun adventures.
Shut up! Fix it! Ah! Ah! You got some stones, Rick. Let's see if they break.
Such a disappointment. And now I need a new welder.
So, I have to ask, not only is it strange that he got out of prison this quickly, but he has willingly changed enough to start obeying the law and entertaining civilians at Coney Island? I get that the message here is second chances, but that doesn't mean stories should just redeem villains just for the sake of it.
Is that Tombstone? What is he doing here?
Looks like he's a mechanic? And saving the day.
Why would Tombstone change? Why does he no longer want to fight Spider-Man? And if his life is being threatened by Kraven, wouldn't the challenge excite him? I guess not, since he's a completely different person now with no explanation.
Tell your friend thanks for looking out for me. See you around, Spider.
Kraven is the best character this game has to offer. He has the most compelling motivation and interactions with other characters. Out of all of these villains, I can understand this one the best. His motivation is clear, his morals are consistent, and his presence is intimidating. He steals the show in every single scene.
I've been in your shadow for hours, but you sense nothing. Light the fires. The great hunt begins. They said you were a killer. Imagine my disappointment.
He's a good man.
There are no good men. Only good prey. I see a man. I sense a beast.
I expected you sooner. Where is the energy of youth, huh? Maybe you lack
motivation. Yes.
The idea of Kraven doing this for the love of the game, while he's so close to death, is presented well, as he shows thorough commitment and plenty of hunting skills to justify why they call him Kraven the Hunter. It's easy to point out what is done right with his character and his plotline, though I'm not saying it's flawless. Most of his problems involve some of his planning, some of which breaches his character. Kraven receives an update that Sandman has escaped and is being sent to the raft. Kraven somehow concludes that he wasn't the one for Kraven to face.
The Sandman eluded us. Recapture not an option.
Then he was not the one.
I'm not sure why this changes anything for Kraven. This line comes out of nowhere. A giant sand creature is probably one of the best options Kraven has in terms of facing the most powerful of supervillains, especially since he puts Black Cat on there, Wraith, and Prowler, despite the fact that he's retired and has lost all of his tech as far as Kraven knows. Maybe you can argue that Sandman being in the raft makes it harder for Kraven to hunt him, but he was planning to go after the Vulture, Mr. Negative, Rhino, Doc Ock, Shocker, Electro, Scorpion, and Fisk, all of which are raft inmates. Speaking of which, I think it's a really bad decision to kill off a good portion of these villains off-screen. I understand that the idea was to make Kraven more intimidating, but it fails to serve that purpose if we don't actually see him kill these villains. The only one we did see him kill was Scorpion, but the others are suddenly killed off-screen, which is a really unsatisfactory way to send off those villains, just randomly killing them off-screen without giving them a proper ending. I also don't know why Kraven put so much effort into chasing Black Cat, when he earlier said that Sandman evading was why he wasn't the one. I ask this not only because this contradicts his own reasoning, but Kraven should know that Black Cat really doesn't stand a chance against him. Any of the other villains that Kraven killed, such as Shocker, Electro, Vulture, and Scorpion, would pretty much destroy Black Cat in a fight. Oh no, she has claws and knows martial arts. Kraven has far superior weaponry and is insanely powerful compared to these other villains. Sandman is not the one, but Black Cat is. I also think it's a bit weird that Mysterio isn't one of the villains Kraven wants to go after, because a guy that can create illusions of reality, that can pretty much trick anyone, would be a really unique and compelling challenge for Kraven. Later, Kraven organizes this fight between Mr. Negative and Miles. The reason Lee is able to escape is because Spider-Man tossed him out of the arena. This probably makes you question, what was Kraven's plan if Miles won the fight and chose to leave the area? Well, nothing, since Lee could escape from them easily. Imagine if someone as fast as Spider-Man could exit this arena. Is this really how Kraven organizes these fight-to-the-death matches, giving his fighters a way out if they feel like leaving? Kraven tries to bait Peter by using Miles' capture. His goal is for Peter to kill him, but here's the thing. Let's set aside the fact that Miles could easily escape this cell as he regains energy and uses the fact that Kraven is busy fighting Spider-Man to his advantage. If Kraven wanted Peter to kill him, why not kill Miles? If he straight up killed the other Spider-Man, Peter would absolutely kill him. This allows Miles to break out and stop the fight. Kraven ruined his own plan by being really stupid. By the end of Kraven's involvement in the story, he gets a fight with Venom and he finally gets what he wants in the end, which is a cool payoff for his character, but the story is worse off for it because we've now lost our most compelling villain in favor of the one-dimensional monster that just wants to take over the world, and the story immediately becomes less interesting to follow. Kraven also feels underutilized because while his ideology is shown and interesting to think about, we never see either Spider-Man confront him on it or challenge him on it. The confrontations are mostly just physical fights without any conversation about why Kraven is doing what he does. Maybe this would be an opportunity for Spider-Man to understand him, or to try to challenge his way of living with the little time he has left. In one of the side missions, you actually learn that Kraven left his family for his obsession with hunting, and they ended up destroying each other. Half of his family wanted him to stop hunting and continue being a family, the other half tried to live up to Kraven's hunting ideals. There's so much you can unpack with that in the actual story. It would give Spider-Man something to meaningfully confront Kraven on, but at no point do either of the Spider-Men have a chance to do this because their dynamic with Kraven doesn't go beyond attacking each other, so it's just a stale and flat dynamic with one of the main villains. And he's dead before anything interesting can happen with them. That's the end of Kraven. Through the game's focus on reformed villains, such as Tombstone, Mr. Negative, Sandman, Mysterio, the Lizard, and Venom by the end, the theme of the importance of second chances is prevalent in the story, which seems to be a follow-up on the first game's story, where a big focus was on Peter trying to show the villains born from revenge that killing isn't the way to seek justice, and that everyone deserves a chance to better themselves after facing punishment.
Well, May's always told me if you help someone,
you help everyone.
The problem with how this game builds upon that idea is that we skip crucial moments that would contribute to the changes some of these villains willingly went through. So, we're left with a shallow message about believing in second chances. It's easier said than done to change a villain who is deeply committed to their goals. We never see how Martin Lee goes from someone who is so angry and vengeful that it feeds into his darker half, to someone who lets go of his desire for revenge and mastered control over his darker half, and who now believes in Spider-Man's way. What are we supposed to take away from this?
Looks like serving time didn't change you at all.
You're wrong.
Is this the only reason we can grasp for why Martin Lee has changed? Because telling us that throwing people in jail is the way to suddenly change them isn't a very compelling message, as that doesn't even touch upon what he did to change while he served his time. We never see how Tombstone changes from a crime leader who runs towards the fights purely for the addiction. He goes from being excited for the rematch to dropping his criminal life entirely. What are we supposed to take away from this? With Sandman and Mysterio, it seems we immediately jump to when they've been reformed. Although they don't have prior portrayals that are contradicted, we still get nothing on how they were reformed, which leads me to ask again, what are we supposed to take away from this? The Lizard and Venom are cases where the characters are being mind-controlled into being villains, so it really isn't much of a question whether they deserve second chances. This isn't a difficult question compared to villains who had more agency in their decisions. So this doesn't add any depth to how this theme is executed. Something that makes the idea of second chances contentious in these games is the practicality of reforming villains, whether or not it's worth reforming these villains at the expense of the people they will hurt beforehand. This at least has a degree of tangibility in this game, compared to No Way Home's Cure Them and Their Reform solution. Kraven is someone who is willing to leave his family behind and let them destroy each other, all for his love of the hunt. He is already dying anyway, so he wants to lean into the more sincere part of himself in his final moments. It becomes an interesting question whether this guy deserves a second chance, especially since he's close to dying anyway. This is the most interesting this theme gets in the story, though it definitely would have added to the execution if either of the Spider-Men had a conversation with Kraven about his family and what he left behind for his hunt, where they sincerely attempt to reform his thought process, and we get to see in real time why this fails with Kraven. Another great example of this is Cletus Cassidy, who is given justification for Yuri to want to kill him and his cult. It gives some credence to those who challenge Spider-Man's ideals, so it's actually a more difficult question to address. I think it's easy to say someone like the Lizard or Sandman deserve a second chance. It is so much harder to say this for Cletus or Kraven. Although I'm overall satisfied with how the least likely and least willing to change are presented for this issue, the opposite extreme of this is either made up of villains who lacked control of their actions or have reformed without any reason or practical solution given. There isn't a middle ground where we get to see a villain willingly change on their own terms, and how either Peter or Miles helps them get there. We see this executed effectively with the other Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock, the Spectacular Spider-Man with Sandman, and the Prowler in Spider-Man Miles Morales. Next up, we have MJ. Before we start talking about MJ in this game, we gotta remember where we left off in the first game.
My new place isn't gonna be ready for about a week, so I'm gonna be crashing with Miles for the next few nights.
Oh, you know, you can always stay at my place. Only if you want to.
No, I mean, yes. I mean, no, I don't. I'm not want to. But meaning, I do want to, but only if you do.
I never stopped wanting to.
Me neither.
This payoff is built around Peter and MJ learning to compromise with one another, and how that strengthens their relationship. Now in this game, Peter asks MJ about moving in with him.
Hey, so, have you thought any more about moving in?
We talked about this. I need to be in the city, close to where the action is.
Out of the blue, there's now an ongoing discussion about MJ moving in with Peter, where she always says no. I thought they figured this out in the first game, where Peter moved in with MJ. Why did this suddenly change? Because she needs to be in the city during work hours? Newsflash, people drive to work every day, or take the train to work every day. She also doesn't need to be near the action all the time if she's an associate editor.
Mary Jane Watson? Associate editor.
The payoff to her work in the first game is her promotion to a higher role. An associate editor is more of a managing role, where she's focused on planning, assigning work, reviewing work, and overseeing the process, so being in the city to spot the action isn't her sole responsibility. Not to mention that she has a workaround for this. Peter or Miles can call her before the action takes place, which gives her a heads up that nobody else would have. Understanding these advantages and workarounds is part of what helps them compromise and succeed in teaming up, like when she broke into Osborn's penthouse, knowing that Peter would help her if she got into trouble. If there is a story, Peter or Miles can get exclusive information for her to grab the story before anyone else. If MJ did more to take advantage of her connection to both Spider-Men, not only would this allow her early exposure to the action, but it would also draw more attention to her stories. Considering Peter thought of this advantage as a high schooler, I'm not sure why Peter and MJ can't put their brains together and use Spider-Man as MJ's exclusive source. This would also fit perfectly for Jameson's ultimatum.
Jonah already cleaning house?
Sort of. Whoever doesn't write a front page story in the next week is fired.
MJ has exclusive access to Spider-Man's work, giving her an opportunity for Spider-Man coverage. I don't see why Jameson, the guy who built his platform on Spider-Man coverage, would be against Spider-Man coverage. It certainly kept Peter a job for years, so all of this really isn't a good basis for MJ's character arc, because it's built on the idea that MJ has been lost for a while and hasn't stayed true to who she is.
I think I've been lost for a while now. Not just to the symbiote. For months I've been trying to be something I'm not.
There's no good reason for MJ to lose sense of who she is for this long. In order for her to struggle as much as she does with her job and her role in helping the city, she has to forget what it means to compromise with Peter and utilize each other's strengths to their advantage. This story has to undercut and neglect payoffs in the first game in order to have this character conflict. The basis of her character arc is already non-functional, but it gets worse with the more information we learn and the more decisions she makes. We're led to believe that MJ has tried to make money by covering Symkaria in her own book, but it only sold 14 copies.
What you got in there?
Unsold Symkaria books. Running out of storage at my place.
But you got great reviews.
I sold 14 copies. Nobody wanted to read about Symkaria.
This is a hard sell for me. First of all, the world doesn't shut up about politics. I know it. We all know it. You're telling me that only 14 people cared to read Mary Jane Watson, a renowned reporter who broke the Devil's Breath story, talk about the ongoing events in Symkaria? This was a front-page article, which lessens the believability this has.
Hey bro, I read MJ's front pager about Symkaria.
Not to mention that Spider-Man has a social media account with over 15 million followers. This was back in 2018, and he would have gained more in 2 years. Did he not promote MJ's book and recommend it to his fans? Does nobody care to do the reading? This deals more damage to the basis of her character arc, and her subsequent decisions don't make this much better. Later on, she decides to write an article that tanks on Spider-Man's reputation, accusing him of reckless property damage, violent outbursts, and causing more harm than good. This is while she knows that Peter is being changed by the suit and it was willing to bring harm to her.
You're not yourself. That suit is changing you.
If the suit is changing Peter to not act like himself, why did she think smearing his reputation wouldn't escalate anything? If anything, that made him less willing to listen to her. Not to mention that this would give the public reason to blame Peter for something beyond his control, since the symbiote is controlling him rather than Peter making these decisions of his own free will. Not only would this unfairly harm Peter's reputation, but this would also cause Peter to blame himself for something beyond his control, which MJ would never do because she knows that's not okay.
This is all my fault.
No, not this song again. You are not alone anymore, Pete.
Despite this, she proceeds to blame him for something that's out of his control. This is antithetical to her character. What makes this worse is that she knew it was possible that Peter wasn't even conscious of what was happening last night, and that the symbiote could have used him as a puppet.
What do you remember about last night?
I just remember feeling tired.
So, without knowing if Peter was even in control of his actions, she posted an article that would lead people to believe he was.
What the hell?
Not to mention that she never tells Peter that he almost killed her because the suit took over. In fact, that should be one of the first things she addresses to Peter if she wants him to snap out of it, instead of writing up an article that can smear his name. She should also know this has serious consequences. In the first game, Norman blamed Spider-Man for Devil's Breath so they'd have an excuse to kill him. In Miles' game, he was falsely blamed for the Newform explosion on the bridge, so Roxxon had an excuse to target Miles. Framing Spider-Man as reckless and violent can give anyone an excuse to initiate a manhunt against Spider-Man. This is extremely reckless of MJ, and she should know this given her experiences with Peter and her knowledge of the city's history.
I saw your story.
I tried to tell you about that.
Yeah, but you didn't, did you?
I can't lose this job.
Your job is to write the truth.
I did.
You did not in fact write the truth if you withheld pivotal information that changes the story, and if Peter were to buy what you're saying, he'd blame himself for something beyond his control once again. And all of this for what? Just to keep your job? You're saying the well-being of my partner is more important than my job? This is such an awful justification for the article. Imagine prioritizing a job over something that can endanger your significant other's life and mental well-being. This doesn't make sense for her character. MJ is destroyed already, and the resolution to her arc is overly confusing and drawn out. MJ becomes Scream and serves to exposit MJ's deep frustrations or intrusive thoughts.
MJ, just talk to me!
I'm done talking! Done begging for validation! From you! From anyone!
This part seems somewhat real since MJ is seeking validation from Jameson in order to keep her job.
This is editor material.
Editor?
Congratulations.
Your first assignment, write more juicy stuff by tomorrow morning. Drama, controversy, just like this.
But the need for validation from Peter shouldn't be a problem for her if she overcame this in the first game.
I'm sorry I screwed things up. It's just hard being the one who always gets saved, you know? Sometimes I want to do the saving.
I'm sorry I made you feel like you couldn't.
This was long resolved between them, so the need for validation from Peter shouldn't be a deep frustration for MJ. This would require her to distrust Peter's belief in her in some way, which doesn't work given the events of the first game. So MJ is left having to resolve that need for validation again, and the endpoint is her telling Jameson to go shock himself and that she quits. That's it? That's the big payoff? We needed an entire game for MJ to learn not to do work she would know is unethical just to hold on to a job and personal validation. And to show that she has learned, she starts running an internet show to start making money. This is something the amazing Lucas thought to do. But we need an entire character arc for MJ to realize there's ways she can make money without smearing her boyfriend's name? Sure, that makes total sense. Moving on to our two main characters, Peter Parker and Miles Morales, we have so much to discuss. A lot of their problems are intermixed with each other, so I figured it would fit better in one big section. I will of course talk about each individually when appropriate, but sometimes the issues will extend to both of them. At the start of the game, we see that Peter has become a teacher at Miles' school and is teaching one of his classes. To no one's surprise, he eventually gets interrupted, which puts his job in jeopardy.
I need this job. If the principal comes back and sees I'm gone, I'm gonna get fired. I know, but you gotta see this.
Did Peter never think to discuss his plan with Miles? Did Miles never ask how Peter plans to cover for himself when he needs to be Spider-Man? Peter has been Spider-Man for 10 years, and Miles has been for almost 2. So this absolutely would cross their mind. One of the ways Peter has tried to account for this is by taking on jobs that don't have strict work hours, such as the Daily Bugle or working under Octavius Industries. And Peter definitely has had to miss class or miss assignments because he was Spider-Man in high school, so it's not like Peter is oblivious to the risk of being fired if he has to be Spider-Man during a job with strict work hours like being a school teacher. Now, this could actually work if Peter thought of any kind of plan to account for this. Before signing on to the position, he absolutely should have discussed plans with Miles for if Peter has to become Spider-Man, such as coming up with alibis. But judging by the dialogue, these two don't actually have a plan, never discussed a plan beforehand, and have accepted defeat.
Hey, you're just cutting class. I abandoned students during a citywide emergency. Yeah, you're screwed.
There's an easy answer to this. Miles called me for help regarding a private issue. I went to help him, but we were chased off by one of these sand creatures that you see throughout the city. Something as simple as that would have worked. They would have thought of this if they had a prior discussion on inventing excuses for either of their absences, but the dialogue makes it seem like they don't know what to do. They act as if they're screwed if they don't discuss a plan to cover for Peter. What's even worse is that while they're swinging at the beginning, they do have a chance to at least talk about what Peter will say to save his job, and neither of them talk about this. It wouldn't have been hard to claim that a sand creature went after them and Peter had to protect Miles from it. What's even worse is that Peter could literally make this excuse when he gets a call.
Principal Evans.
Of course! Principal Evans!
All students have evacuated their classrooms. Where are you? Mr. Parker!
I just... forgot... something in my car!
What was that?
Nothing! I'm just... it worked? I mean, I'm just running back right now!
Get back here and supervise your students, or else.
Peter is literally being attacked by sand creatures right now. He can literally act as if he's being chased by one right now and is trying to protect Miles. He can bring this up when explaining why he was gone. Peter never defends himself by saying he was attacked by sand creatures, which wouldn't even be a lie, that'd be a half-truth. Miles literally sees Peter getting chewed out for this, and he doesn't step in and stand up for him. He can bring Genki and Haley to corroborate that Peter was trying to help him with something, and they got caught up with the sand creatures, yet all three of them just stand there and watch Peter get fired. This damages all of these characters, but this especially damages Miles, and Peter is made to be supremely stupid in order for him to lose his job when any one of these characters could have saved it right here. This is not a great start for our two Spider-Men. Peter reunites with Harry for the first time in years. He starts to learn more about what Harry went through and what Norman was planning for him once he was released, but this raises so many questions already about what Peter did after learning that Harry was sick alongside Norman's various crimes and trying to cure Harry. For one, did Peter never try to reach out to Norman about what MJ learned about Harry? Given that MJ was seen breaking into Norman's home and and did an Oscorp expose based on the video she downloaded, Norman's actions with Devil's Breath would have been fully documented. It's reasonable for Norman to assume Peter would naturally be told about it from her. Did Peter never think to question Norman about what he was hiding about Harry? Because if Norman was looking for a cure to save Harry, you'd think Peter would be interested in helping him find that cure and learning more about Harry's situation, especially since this would remove incentive for Norman to rely on more desperate and dangerous means if he has Peter's help. But this never comes up, and Peter seems surprised by everything he's seeing. Peter could at least offer to work under Norman to find a cure, not only to help save Harry's life, but also to keep tabs on Norman in case he works on any other unethical experiments, since the last one created Mr. Negative and Doc Ock and the Devil's Breath pandemic. He has all these talks with Lee and Otto about how Norman will face justice the right way, but he doesn't seem compelled to keep tabs on Norman when he could have. And if he works under Norman, this would also help his financial situation. None of this is ever addressed in the story, so it seems like Peter has just forgotten to do a follow-up on the information he learned in the first game. He doesn't even show a hint of suspicion for how the Emily May Foundation is run, or a desire to investigate it, since he knows Norman is running this place and is potentially running dangerous experiments in private. Nor does he show discomfort for the fact that Norman has gotten off for his crimes pretty easily after the first game.
The project breaks every state and federal regulation on the books, but he doesn't care.
If the city finds out, he can kiss re-election goodbye.
Never mind re-election. He'd be tried in The Hague for war crimes.
All those casualties will be forgotten.
Another moment of significant character damage for Peter is the way he responds to Miles nearly letting people die in pursuit of revenge. Miles' decision makes sense since we can understand how his desire for revenge is hindering his decision making, but Peter doesn't actually confront Miles on it when it nearly cost people their lives. Miles heard Peter calling him for help when people were in danger, and he proceeded to look the other way, a mistake that Peter once made that cost him his uncle. If Miles had acted too late, someone could have died. Yet Peter never brings this up to Miles in his conversation with him, when he absolutely should as his mentor.
I read MJ's front pager about some Karya.
Not while you were swinging, I hope. Sorry. Scolding mentor mode, downshifting.
It's his job to criticize him when he makes a serious mistake that puts lives in danger. Miles has broken the Spider-Man oath with what he did here.
I promise to do everything in my power to protect this city.
I promise.
A moment where Peter reminds Miles of where his priorities should lie would fix this. It's crucial that he even mentions the fact that someone could have died today and that Miles recklessly chose the wrong priorities. Peter should be willing to confront anyone who makes a grave mistake like this.
No, I got myself into this. I'm getting myself out.
What do you mean you got yourself into this?
MJ, did you know Lee would be here?
Not exactly.
What do you mean?
I thought something might happen, but not like this.
Why didn't you tell me? I thought we were partners.
If Miles goes around as Spider-Man putting civilians last and revenge first, then Miles will continue making the same mistakes unless Peter meaningfully confronts him on this. Letting Miles off for this is incredibly irresponsible as a mentor figure, and Peter should never be afraid to be stern towards Miles when the situation calls for it. This moment is brief, yet notable as a problem for Miles. Remember how Spider-Man is meant to keep a secret identity?
We really gotta do this with the mask on?
Setting aside how bizarre that is for Prowler of all people to say, why would Miles unmask himself in this public area for several minutes? Miles has enough experience to know how dangerous it is if his identity is known.
Kinda defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
Another moment involves Genki calling Miles when he's in the middle of dealing with a missing persons report, which presumably involves a hostage being held. During this situation, Genki gives Miles a call about Mr. Atlas when this is a bad time for Miles to respond.
Heyo, Miles.
What's up, Genki? Can this wait?
Not really. I've got Mr. Atlas here. I told him how you were missing the fair for volunteer work, and he asked for a phone call with you. Is, now a good time?
Thanks, Genki. But now is definitely not a good time.
Here he is, Mr. Atlas. I know you've got a flight to catch.
Given Genki's knowledge of Miles' work, I think it's very out of character for him to do this to Miles because this can screw over his progress in saving the hostage. But what's even worse for Miles is that he proceeds with a call anyway when he needs to be quiet and focus on saving the hostage. The hostage can die if they know he's here. Miles can easily blame this on poor reception if he needed to find an excuse for the delay, and Miles doesn't confront Genki on forcing him into this phone call while he's doing this important mission, when this could have cost the hostage their life. Later in the story, Miles risks his identity again by swinging outside his home in his street clothes. This is especially indefensible for Miles when he has the power to go invisible, yet he doesn't do this to avoid being seen using his powers in his street clothes.
Kinda defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
Miles gets instructed to warn Black Cat about the hunters and get her out of the city. Throughout his pursuit, Felicia uses a magic wand to use portals and causes reckless destruction in the city, to the point of sending the L train through a building.
Whoa!
station that could have hurt people!
Yeah, and there could be people in the train right now on either end that are in danger because of this, whether it be in the subway or in the building, yet Miles doesn't alert Peter or MJ about this so Peter can get involved and help out, even though Peter said to call him if anything comes up.
Call me if anything comes up, and...
Well, something did come up. The hunters are chasing after Black Cat, and she's causing destruction in the city. The fact Miles doesn't tell Peter that a train got split by a portal and crashed into a building and just leaves everyone behind like that is a big problem. He needs to know about this immediately, as this can have significant consequences.
Felicia, you have to stop. This is reckless, even for you.
This is another problem. MJ knows about this and isn't telling Peter about any of it. Both of them are acting out of character here.
Why didn't you tell me? I thought we were partners.
And it's not even just Black Cat that's causing destruction. The hunters are chasing her and rapidly firing bullets. Peter needs to know about this immediately. Black Cat then enters one of the hunter helicopters, then causes it to set on fire and crash land on its way down, which very easily could have killed the hunters inside, as well as any bystanders at the park if they were nearby. Miles saw this, and he's already getting a negative impression of her.
Why won't you help me stop this guy?
You've saved the city before. You'll do it again.
Spider-Man was right about you. You only care about yourself.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it would be most in character for Miles to take her wand from her immediately, since she just sent a train through a building and probably killed a bunch of hunters.
My girlfriend's in Paris, and I got her into trouble with some bad people. She needs me now.
MJ said not to trust you.
Red's a smart one. But you gotta make your own choices, kid. Here. Focus. Think Eiffel Tower.
Au revoir, Felicia.
Thank you.
It was at this point that I realized that Miles was completely assassinated as a character in this game. Black Cat is known for starting a gang war in the City That Never Sleeps DLC by lying to Peter about having a son in danger just so she can make money.
No, you gotta be kidding me! Tell me you weren't just stringing me along!
Sorry, sweetie. But I needed help to pull off a job this big.
All you ever wanted was Hammerhead's drive.
The entire wealth of the Magia. In the palm of my hand.
You gave Hammerhead fake drives?
You think he's gonna be mad at me?
So, the kidnapping? Your son? That was all just a lie?
Lie is such an ugly word. I prefer misdirection.
Both Hardy and the blackmail material were lost in his attack. Now Hammerhead is out for blood. Blackmail no longer an option. He's gone to the mattresses, hoping to eliminate the other Magia Dons by force. To do this, he's continued to appropriate the heavy arms Sable left when they pulled up stake. We've impounded as much of Sable's equipment as we can, but it may not be enough. It's an all-out gang war, and New York is caught in the middle.
You're telling me that Miles would immediately trust Felicia and let her leave all the way to Paris just because she claims to have a girlfriend in danger? Given that Felicia told a near-identical lie about her fake son, he should never look the other way when she is shown to be incredibly reckless. Even reckless for her based on MJ's remarks. She probably killed a bunch of hunters in that helicopter crash, but because of what could easily have been a lie, Miles lets her go to Paris when that's a perfect opportunity for a wanted thief to escape the US police?
Oh, that's stupid.
Even though the same character refused to look the other way for Finn when she asked him to, someone he considered family.
This is the only way I can beat him. I need you to look the other way. Please.
I can't. I made a promise. Au revoir, Felicia.
You don't get the first thing about being Spider-Man.
This is a complete assassination of Miles' character, and even if he were to believe Felicia on her girlfriend being in danger, he still wouldn't do what he did in the game. If this was actually true, wouldn't Miles take it upon himself and Peter to handle it?
Call me if anything comes up, and...
Felicia doesn't have a code against killing. This is one of her big disagreements with Peter.
I can help you stop Hammerhead!
How? No killing, no breaking the law? Your way won't get it done.
So I don't think either Spider-Man would be comfortable with her handling this on her own, not to mention the risk of failing to save her girlfriend. If she fails, and none of the Spider-Men are there to help her, then her girlfriend remains in danger anyway. What makes all of this worse is that Peter would eventually find out that Miles let Felicia go after everything she just did in the city, and didn't tell him about her girlfriend being in danger, and didn't warn him about all the damage being caused. Peter, of all people, should know the consequences of letting a dangerous criminal go, because that was his big mistake that got his uncle killed. And even if he also believed Felicia actually had a girlfriend in danger, he wouldn't let her handle it on her own, since he went out of his way to help Felicia when he believed that she actually had a son in danger. No matter what, Peter also takes damage as a character. Later on, Miles goes to Coney Island because Mysterio might be one of Kraven's goons.
As you look at these images, I want you to think about your future, your hopes and your dreams. Ah, yes. I'm getting good data.
Lee? Beck told me to think about my future when he was creating my illusion. Is this what I was thinking about?
So Mysterio can grab data based on your own thoughts, which leads Miles to eventually seeing an illusion of Martin Lee and fighting him. Why would Miles allow Mysterio to grab data from his own thoughts when this can result in his secret identity being compromised?
Kinda defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
After this, Miles decides to leave Coney Island.
That thing back there really messed my head up. Can we dip?
Hold on. Why was Miles at Coney Island to begin with?
You know how Mysterio just got out of prison? Well, he's opening a new attraction there.
He could be the hunter's next target. Good call.
So Miles doesn't bother warning Mysterio about the hunters, nor does he try getting him out of the city. Instead, he forgets the reason he came here to begin with, and possibly lets Mysterio die in doing so, because the hunters do eventually show up, and he believed Mysterio may be one of the targets. He was literally going to leave him to die.
So we're just supposed to let people die?
Miles is destroyed beyond belief already. Miles doesn't pick and choose when he's Spider-Man. He wouldn't take a break from being Spider-Man even to save his own skin.
Go back to being Spider-Man when the heat dies down.
I don't get to pick and choose when I'm Spider-Man.
Can we dip?
I gotta stop Finn. And I'm not gonna let people die just to save my skin.
Can we dip?
You don't realize I'm the only one trying to save you.
And I'm trying to save everyone else. But I can't be the person you want to turn me into. I can't turn my back when people need me. I have to be better than that.
Can we dip?
Just a guy who doesn't give up.
Can we dip?
If it wasn't apparent already, Miles is a completely different character in this game, not even halfway into the story, and he's receiving major damage. It's also worth noting that Peter didn't know Miles was here because Mysterio could be a target. Miles and Genki didn't warn Peter about this for some reason. What's even worse is that Peter should also be thinking of this. He has been Spider-Man for 10 years, yet it requires Genki and Miles to note the possibility that Mysterio is one of Kraven's targets. Why isn't Peter considering this either? Did he at least alert Mysterio so he can safely leave the city? This same problem extends to Tombstone as well. Peter finds out that Tombstone works here as a mechanic. Does he not think to warn Tombstone and get him out of the city as well? Does he not think to call Miles to do this? It's like they randomly stopped taking precautions after Black Cat was let off.
Kraven's Goon Squad, huh? Which supervillain are you hunting this time? Mysterio? Tombstone?
Okay. So now Peter has acknowledged them, and he knows that the hunters are here. He should be calling Miles immediately, since Peter can't be in two places at once, and there are two targets here. This is of course setting aside the civilians he needs to protect. MJ should also be calling Miles if Peter isn't. This is not just irresponsible, but it neglects Peter's growth in the first game, where he learned to start accepting help instead of shouldering everything on his own, yet he forgets that lesson when lives are in danger. Oh yeah, and there's also a time where the hunters fire explosions and Spider-Man swings it right into the hunters so they fall off the ledge. Last I checked, explosions kill people in these games.
I don't understand. Spider-Man doesn't kill people.
Hey, I just saw what happened at Coney. What was that?
Did you also see the part where the hunters showed up and probably escaped? Whatever, I guess he gave up, as Spider-Man is known for doing when dangerous criminals are out there. Speaking of which, we're eventually introduced to the Wraith side missions, where we learn that Yuri has become a vigilante who kills criminals. Now this isn't super relevant to the main story, but a big problem I have with it is that Peter lets Yuri go by the end of it, despite knowing that Yuri enjoys killing people and believes she needs to turn herself in.
Yuri! I know what you're gonna say, but just hear me out. The system works most of the time, but there are times when it doesn't, and to me that's unacceptable. Some people put their trust in fate, or karma, or whatever. But I can only trust me.
You can't kill people, Yuri.
Apparently I can. And you know what? It felt good.
You need to turn yourself in.
For what? I just dispensed justice. True justice. And I restored a little bit of balance to the world.
You're my friend, Yuri. I don't want to come after you.
I'm trying to save the most lives. You still do that pretty well. You gonna turn me in now? I'll let you know when I find him.
Just because she saved him when it suited her goals doesn't mean Peter would stop going after her. She is still going to kill people because she believes in it and takes pleasure in it. Are we led to believe that Peter lacks a moral backbone and won't turn people in when they have intent to murder people and have done so in the past? Peter is fine with letting someone who enjoys murdering people roam free? This is supremely out of character. Let's not forget that Peter has experience dealing with people who believe killing will bring justice, but only got innocent people hurt along the way. He has been Spider-Man for 10 years, so he wouldn't be naive enough to think this isn't possible with Yuri. It happened with Martin Lee when he wanted to be a good man. It happened with Otto when he kept convincing himself that he was serving justice. It happened with Finn when she became the Tinkerer. So it could also happen with Wraith if she acts on anger and sadisticness instead of rational thought. Later in the story, MJ alerts Harry and Peter that she's at an abandoned zoo in Jersey. She was last heard with the Hunters, so they should expect her to be at their base of operations. After all, they received the call from Kurt's phone. Why didn't they call Miles for help when this could be their confrontation with Kraven? Not only do they need to save MJ and Connors, but they also need to take on Kraven and his army. Peter wouldn't have gotten himself stabbed if he brought Miles to help him. While Spider-Man is in the black suit, the Hunters approach the EMF. Once the fight is over, he changes out of his black suit in front of helicopters on a street where multiple civilians are there to see.
Kind of defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
Miles eventually sees Peter in the black suit for the first time, and they work together to chase after the lizard. Miles notices that Peter is acting strange all of a sudden, from minor acts like Peter neglecting someone on the ground, to telling Miles that he's gonna take on the lizard alone, and that he has big teeth. Miles knows something is off.
You sure? He's got big teeth.
So do I.
He's not normally like that, right?
No. He's never like that.
If Miles knows this, why doesn't he insist on helping him out? Peter is not in his right mind, and this will only make him prone to making mistakes, which he did earlier in the chase.
Time to go boom, boys! No! Spider-Man has got defenses!
You'd think Miles would be more concerned for Peter's safety after he almost died fighting Kraven. You'd think Miles would want to support Peter in general because of the time Peter needed Miles to save him from the Rhino in his solo game. This is an augmented version of the Lizard who could kill Peter, especially if Peter is not in his right mind while fighting Lizard. But no, Miles lets Peter leave and recklessly fight the Lizard. It especially gets worse when the fight gets brought towards the open city. So much destruction is being caused. Where is Miles? Why hasn't he at least called Peter about this to let him know that he's on his way? Not to mention the various Hunters that are showing up. Is Genki not warning him about this either? Are there not constant reports on the Spider-Man alert system? It's also worth noting that it's night when Peter leaves the sewer from the fight with the Lizard. From afternoon to evening, Miles didn't do anything about the Lizard despite the numerous amounts of destruction in the city. He didn't even reach out to Peter in case he needed backup. He basically saw him swing away and just ignored everything for the rest of the day. Now, I talked about the symbiote affecting Peter inconsistently due to its manipulation tactics being inconsistent, but that's an issue with the symbiote. I have a separate issue with how Peter chooses to react to it. Now, we have to remember that Peter is being manipulated into agreeing with the symbiote because he is scared of losing his loved ones like he lost Aunt May, which is heavily implied when Miles and Lee go inside his mind to find the source of his pain.
We have to find the source of his pain.
This is showing us how the symbiote was able to manipulate Peter and which part of his desires it's playing on.
All I wanted was to save everyone! MJ! May!
So with this in mind, it's really strange that Peter would ever say this when told to save Miles.
Peter, where is Miles? He didn't come home last night and he's not answering my calls. Hello? I'm at my office. Tell him to come see me. Now.
Why can't anyone take care of themselves?
It gets to the point where his mom needs to grill him in order for him to focus on saving Miles, when that should be a top priority for him if the symbiote is playing on this element of his desires. As Peter tries to kill Kraven, this escalates to a confrontation between Miles and Peter. Peter's perspective is laid out clearly. He thinks that the suit is the solution to his problems, and that Miles just wants the suit for himself.
I need this suit! It makes me a better Spider-Man!
You just want it for yourself. I'm finally everything everyone needs me to be.
On the contrary, Miles tries to argue that this kind of power will only push them away and that holding onto it could have killed MJ.
And what about MJ? You could have killed her. People in my life, they keep dying. I blame myself for that. They needed a hero, and if I thought some suit could save them, maybe I'd be in your shoes now. But this kind of power is the reason they're gone. Not you, not me.
Now ask yourself this, why would this change Peter's mind on whether or not the suit is the solution to his problems? The standout for him is that the suit makes him more powerful and more effective in saving lives. The only direct counter Miles could give to this is that Peter almost killed MJ, but Peter was never there to experience that. He was asleep. Why would Peter take Miles at his word when he believes that he wants the suit for himself? Why would he believe the symbiote trying to kill MJ if he believes the symbiote is helping him prevent tragedies like Aunt May? Telling Peter that he's better than this and doesn't need a suit to fix his problems doesn't directly challenge the why behind his perspective. On top of this, would Peter really believe that this kind of power is why people in Miles' life or his life keep dying? In Peter's eyes, keeping his villains alive is what allowed them to release Devil's Breath and kill Aunt May. Not to mention that if Miles had the black suit when his father was in danger, he probably could have saved his life at City Hall.
All these villains. He really thought the suit could solve it all.
So, what did Miles tell Peter that would make him reevaluate his perspective on this? In Peter's eyes, this kind of power would have saved Aunt May. At no point did wearing the symbiote make him lose anyone in his life. All it did was make his job as a hero much easier. It's what allowed him to beat up Kraven and save Miles in this very mission. So, why would he change over Miles telling him that he's better than this and that he will only lose more people by keeping the suit? Sweet-talking Peter shouldn't cause a radical shift in his perspective. An example of this being done effectively can be seen in Spectacular Spider-Man. Peter is similarly motivated by wanting to help his loved ones, and the symbiote manipulates him by playing on that personal desire. Peter entertains that the loss of Uncle Ben was more so a product of a cold, unfair world, rather than a personal failing that he needs to take the full blame for. The symbiote draws him towards the idea of taking control, and not allowing a sense of responsibility to hold him back. Peter gets convinced that everything he has ever wanted can be his with the symbiote, if he lets loose and makes bold choices to his benefit, such as accepting the deal with Tombstone. And when Peter goes through a process of introspection, he doesn't get convinced through hollow statements telling him that he's better than this, and that this kind of power will make him lose everyone. He thinks to himself what Uncle Ben would say about this. He runs through each and every step of what it would mean to accept the symbiote in his life through the perspective of everything he knows about Ben, to see if there's a version of this where Ben would tell him that this is okay for him to do. But experiencing it all over again forces him to recognize that he can never truly escape accountability for his actions, and if he allows himself to reject it, then he will never become the man Ben wants him to become. And it only makes sense to him when he remembers that he isn't truly alone and that he has done good in the past. He doesn't need a better suit to achieve this. We're given a deeper exploration of Peter Parker's mindset in order to unpack his regression and how he fights his way out of it. Yet in this game, Miles never says anything nearly as substantial as what Peter thinks about in the show. He tells Peter something he would believe is a lie, and something that doesn't align with Peter's experience, yet this causes him to remove the symbiote all of a sudden. There's really nothing to unpack about why Peter would change and the thought process behind it. Peter eventually gets the suit off and he goes to Oscorp to destroy it. Not sure why his mask is off when he planned to meet Dr. Connors there, and any security guards could potentially see him.
Kind of defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
After Venom knocks out Spider-Man for a whole night, he tries to track him down. Now, for some reason, Peter and Miles don't think to alert the entire city about Venom and his army's weaknesses. In fact, the only plan they discuss to exploit their weaknesses is to recreate the sonic elements of the bell to attack Venom and his army.
I've got an idea. When you were under the influence, certain sounds made you weak.
That bell. But we can't just carry it around.
No, but I have this mixing app on my phone. I can recreate the bell sonic elements. Then we can use it against Harry and his army.
That's genius. Glad you decided to study music tech.
Except they should also be telling the city about this by telling the police and using the Spider-Man app to alert people. Spider-Man also has a social media account that he can use to tell the public about Venom's weaknesses. Sirens, bells, and alarms are capable of weakening the symbiotes. Now imagine if the police knew of this. MJ gets a call from Peter during this alien invasion, and not only does Peter talk in such a casual and leisurely manner, but he explains the situation like he's a 2-year-old trying to explain a movie.
In fact, I think I got a promotion.
Hey, that's what you wanted, right?
Yeah, I thought it was.
Then that's
great. Hey, listen. Something's gone wrong with Harry.
What happened?
Well,
Hang on, someone's at the door.
it's kind of hard to explain. Just promise me you'll stay away from him, okay? MJ?
What kind of warning is this? What's so hard about saying, MJ, Harry has the symbiote. You are potentially in danger. Stay away from him and secure yourself. Even the MCU version knows how to control a conversation to get something important out.
MJ, look, I know you have a lot of questions, but look, we really have to get out of here, okay?
Not only is the way Peter is speaking lacking in urgency, but why is he calling MJ now instead of the moment he woke up and saw that Venom escaped?
You can't just ignore that she's in danger.
He waited a ridiculous amount of time before warning MJ so she can prepare for this. Putting off a warning like this is incredibly irresponsible.
What's important is not standing by and allowing someone to suffer or die because you do nothing. If you don't get that, then you don't get the first thing about being Spider-Man.
Peter eventually fights MJ as Scream, and once she is defeated, he takes off his mask when we just saw that cop cars are in front of them. Why is he taking off his mask in public?
Kind of defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
Peter sees an explosion go off, and instead of checking the area to make sure no one was harmed,
He's just standing there.
he also kisses MJ with his mask off, which means this renowned reporter could possibly be seen as a loved one of Spider-Man's.
You stupid.
Peter and Miles meet again in their new suits. I'd call it character assassination for Miles to have terrible taste in Spider-Man suits, but I'm more bent on the fact that during an alien invasion, he stopped helping just to make a new suit. Why is that?
It's time for a Miles Morales original, you know?
You mean like the black and red suit that he made to distinguish himself from the red and blue Spider-Man? Now, in the middle of this alien invasion, Peter tells Miles how he might have to kill Harry to take down Venom, and he starts crying because he realizes that he might have to live through the experience of losing May again. And this is something I think would be more understandable for a younger Spider-Man like Miles, but I can't help but remember how in the first game, Peter knew that May could die at any moment, and this motivated him to fight harder, and he didn't break down crying with the need to be lifted up to take action. MJ gave Peter an idea for an alternate plan, but she didn't need to make him mentally strong enough to keep going. The reason for this is because this is a more seasoned Spider-Man, so I'd expect him to act as such, but this moment feels like something you'd see from a much younger Spider-Man, which is why it's so weird to see Miles be the one that has to lift up Peter in this moment when an alien invasion is happening and they need to act immediately. Another moment of character assassination for Miles is when he decides to ask out Haley on a date during a symbiote invasion where people are dying and Peter is stressed about his best friend going crazy and possibly having to kill him.
I like you so much, and I think you like me. Do you want to go out? On a date? Is that a yes? Well, it's a date then. After all this is over.
I'm glad somebody has time to enjoy themselves when there's so much at stake.
Taking a minute to ask someone out on a date during an alien invasion is incredibly irresponsible.
You're saying the lives of a billion strangers are more important than my loved ones?
Yes.
Imagine if Tony Stark randomly decided to fly to Pepper and ask her out on a date in the middle of Loki's invasion. Yeah, that would obviously be really stupid for him to do. I just can't believe what this game has done to Miles as a character.
I don't get to pick and choose when I'm Spider-Man.
While the government sits on its hands, my loyal listeners have taken to the forums, looking for any signs of weakness these creatures show.
So, the city still doesn't know about the weaknesses of the symbiotes when Peter and Miles could spread this easily. Why have they still not spread this crucial information to the city? The Spider-Man initiate a plan where MJ gets sent alone into the cave to get the symbiote rock while Miles stays outside to fight, and Peter distracts Venom. I don't think either of them should be okay with MJ being sent alone on this. Miles should be following her because she can be one-shotted by anyone that spots her. This cave is filled with symbiotes guarding this place. The moment she grabs it, so many would be alerted of her presence. The game ends with Miles unmasking himself in a public area while telling Peter he can handle the entire city. Well, you know the drill.
Kind of defeats the whole anonymous superhero thing.
We've covered a lot of ground for Peter and Miles by this point, and it's fairly evident that they've been thoroughly assassinated, but I want to discuss their character arcs as a whole. Miles' story is about letting go of hate and revenge, while regaining his faith in his loved ones. While Miles is poisoned by Scorpion's poison, he gets these visions of his family rejecting him, and we get more of these throughout his encounter with Mr. Negative.
What are you doing to me?
Taking a look into your soul, I see a boy, terrified of being alone, of failing his family.
They keep insisting that he's a failure as a hero as well as to them, and I don't think this works as a part of his character arc because nothing was done to develop Miles' insecurities, which makes the resolution feel hollow, which we'll get more into later. Miles has never been rejected by his friends or family, as they all know he's Spider-Man and have only ever supported him. There's never any friction in his relationships to justify feeling this insecure. This genuinely comes out of nowhere and becomes a driving force behind Miles' internal conflict, which gets resolved because Miles decides, no, I'm not giving up. What does that even say about how to overcome self-doubt? Simply showing Miles rejecting it doesn't tell us anything meaningful, and if such a major insecurity like this can just come out of nowhere, I have to ask, why is the resolution meaningful? Why does the payoff where he rejects his insecurities even matter if they can just spawn out of nowhere without any development? There's no reason to believe he won't have the same concern again in the next game, as opposed to believing in his ability to overcome this insecurity. What makes this even worse is that Miles had already gone through self-doubt issues in his own game.
Use Vin. Tell her you want to join the underground.
You just told me don't take off the mask.
Don't tell her you're Spider-Man. Go to her as a friend.
If I told her the truth...
I told your dad the truth. Thought he had my back. Hoped he would. And my brother know. Instead, he cut me out. If I kept my mouth shut, maybe I'd still have a family. You know what you have to do.
He chose to listen to his uncle's advice, which motivated him to manipulate Finn instead of telling her the truth to try getting through to her. Aaron is presented as a bad influence who feeds Miles his paranoid view of the world, giving him reason to be scared of rejection from his friends and family. Aaron speaks from experience, and Miles knows that Aaron has been distant from his family for a long time, but in spite of that, Miles overcame that once he came clean to his mom.
Why didn't you tell me about any of this? All those talks we had? How to keep yourself safe?
I didn't want you to worry. And the other Spider-Man's gone. I just keep making things worse and worse. Now I screwed up things with you.
Miles, there is nothing you could ever do or ever be that would make me stop loving you. Nada. You give me strength, Miles. That's all a hero really is. Someone who's brave for the people they love.
Just a guy who doesn't give up.
You remind me more of your father every day.
Miles would never believe his mom would reject him after that experience. This only strengthened her belief in Miles and his worthiness of being Spider-Man by living up to the hero his father was and never giving up. This also strengthened Miles' belief in himself in spite of each and every mistake he's making. Yet in Spider-Man 2, he doesn't make any major mistakes that would make people reject him. Their loyalty, nor their honesty to Miles is ever put into question. Where's this coming from that Miles is so scared of being rejected by the people he loves? As for Miles' hatred for Mr. Negative, his character arc goes back and forth in this game. First, he's willing to let him die, but then he immediately realizes this is wrong. If he can't even let Mr. Negative die, I'm never going to believe he would murder him. So his arc is built on a weak foundation, something that we can't reasonably believe Miles would commit to. His obsession with Lee doesn't lead me to believe this could result in him actually executing him. For a chunk of the game, he gets sidelined after Peter gets the black suit, and only confronts Lee again later in the game, where he has the chance to kill Lee, but he doesn't even try to. We already know he wasn't willing to let Martin Lee die, so why is this a significant payoff? Miles didn't need to meaningfully change to achieve this payoff, he just had to remain who he was earlier. His I forgive you but not really moment doesn't carry much weight because he didn't need to put much effort into changing himself to let go of his hate. He just needed to be the same guy he was earlier in the game, the guy who was unwilling to let Martin Lee die, work with him to save his mentor, and hear Lee say he's sorry. This is barely an arc, this is a combination of ideas that aren't given the time to properly develop. All of this eventually builds to the end of Peter's arc, where he chooses to trust Miles with the mantle of Spider-Man while he takes a break. The lesson Peter is meant to learn is about balance. The problem is that the only meaningful action he takes to show that he has achieved balance is to take a break and trust Miles with the responsibility of being New York's only Spider-Man. The problem is, we got this in Miles' game. Peter is okay with this because he has learned to start trusting his allies in his first game and has learned not to bear the weight of the world alone.
I can't take this.
You can, and you will.
I'll pay you back. Soon.
Just ask for help next time. Oh, you are so much like Ben. You have to learn to swallow that Parker pride and accept that you're human, like the rest of us.
So if Peter needs to take a break, he knows to do this.
Hey, Miles, MJ's flying into JFK next Tuesday. You mind covering patrol for me?
No problem.
Thanks for covering Manhattan while I'm in DIY mode.
Hey, my pleasure. What's the point of having two Spider-Men if they don't coordinate work schedules?
I heard that.
Another aspect about why this doesn't work is that nothing was shown in the game that shows Peter's lack of understanding of balance. If anything, he is well aware that he can take a break if he needs to.
Gonna miss these chases when I'm in Emily May. The adrenaline, going through the city like it's an obstacle course, never gets old. Getting to do real science, though, for actual money. Oh my god, I finally did it! I have a stable career! Okay, cool it, Parker. I can daydream about those fat science stacks later.
So, what's the big payoff for? Why is Peter making such a big deal about telling Miles? What is the big achievement for his character here? If this is meant to imply that this decision is so major for Peter because he will actually quit being Spider-Man for some time altogether, then I've got even bigger issues here. First of all, this is the opposite of balance. Miles is still a kid learning to be an adult, and his mom informed Peter that Miles focuses too much on being Spider-Man.
All Miles talks about is how to be a better Spider-Man, how to help you.
So, how exactly is it balanced to drop all of this responsibility onto a kid who focuses too much on being Spider-Man?
Why would the city need me when it has you?
I got this. All of it.
How is that a resolution to Miles focusing too much on being Spider-Man? Are we led to believe that if something like Sandman happened again, Peter would simply stay back and let Miles deal with it? Because if the break is more significant than I thought it was earlier, to explain why Peter was struggling to break it down to Miles as if it was such a big deal, then this is deeply out of character. Oh, and just a side note, he knows that Cletus is out there with the Carnage symbiote, so Carnage could pop up at any time. At this stage, Peter would never actively choose not to be Spider-Man if his help is needed. This is the same character who let his aunt die to save the entire city, yet we're meant to believe he would momentarily quit to focus on himself?
You're saying the lives of a billion strangers are more important than my loved ones?
Yes.
It's beyond messy to think about, and I think the best faith interpretation is that, while he didn't necessarily quit, the game still treats his decision to take a break as more significant and more groundbreaking than it really should be for Peter, as if it's some grand resolution to a character arc. It's pretty evident in Across the Spider-Verse that he's coming back anyway, so this giant emphasis on his break is really strange to me. So alongside the frequent damages to Peter and Miles' characters, their character arcs are poorly executed and built on shallow development and neglect their prior entries. Both Spider-Men were done dirty by this game.
Both equally terrible. Does that settle it?
In this section, we're going to talk about the plot as a whole, the world-building problems that occur throughout, general continuity problems, and of course, some power scaling issues. There's a prevailing notion that Peter was nerfed in this game, and has become a large focus in discussion. Now the thing is, and I have proof of this, it's not just Peter that gets nerfed, and to fixate on that specifically, it inadvertently downplays another big issue. Miles was also nerfed in this game to a very significant degree. Both Peter and Miles have been nerfed in their intellect and combat performance, which is setting their major character assassinations aside. And the first notable example of this is the Sandman fight.
What's the plan? Keep him busy! I got an idea!
Miles was directly ordered to keep Sandman busy. Miles never communicated any changes in his plans to Peter, so we can only assume that remained his objective. Yet when Peter gets grabbed by Sandman, Miles noticeably doesn't interfere. Peter gets thrown into a building where civilians are protected, and Sandman proceeds to attack him, and Miles still didn't interfere.
Still angry after all these years, Marco? You should try yoga! Must be more of a Pilates guy. That was your idea?
This line directly implies that Miles watched Peter get almost crushed and did nothing to help save him, allowed Sandman to throw Peter into a building with unprotected civilians, and allowed him to swing his arm at the building. He watched Peter fail just so he could make fun of him when his inaction almost led to his mentor being suffocated and the civilians being hurt or killed. What was Miles doing? Asking Marco to dinner?
Back the hell?
Now that's spider strength.
And are we led to believe that Peter is so stupid that he thinks it's a smart plan to punch a giant Sandman in the face? He's impervious.
Impervious? What, is that a good thing?
Yeah. Means nothing and no one can hurt you. Including Spider-Man.
I don't know what Peter thought this would achieve. Let's not forget that he has fought Sandman before, and he has been Spider-Man for 10 years.
Still angry after all these years, Marco? You should try yoga!
And you should try escaping once Sandman opens his hand instead of sitting down and quipping, thus allowing yourself to get grabbed again. And just to be clear, quipping while fighting is not a problem, but doing nothing just to quip is a problem. Did neither Peter or Miles think to use Miles' bioelectricity to hinder Sandman? This would be an easy way of tripping him so he can cause less damage to the city. Even MCU Spider-Man was smart enough to try something like this. Or Harry in Spider-Man 3. We're dealing with two science geniuses, one of which who has been Spider-Man for 10 years, the other who has been Spider-Man for 2 years and has 1 year of experience with bioelectricity. It's unbelievable how bad they are at their jobs. Peter sees Sandman's fist coming, and instead of dodging it as we've seen him do with Electro's lightning shots, even while injured with 14 broken bones, he decides to stand there and put his hands out to block his face. I guess he forgot how to dodge after all these years. Peter later proceeds to try punching Sandman again and gets slapped down easily. I'm sorry, did this version of Spider-Man never learn from his first encounter with Sandman? They only think of using electricity later on in the fight. It really shouldn't take both of you getting your asses beat to realize that sand is weak to electricity. So out of nowhere, Miles forgets how to stick to the walls and he rolls down and almost allows himself to be eaten. Peter proceeds to go for a punch to Sandman again after this failed twice, but instead of Sandman slapping him down or trapping him, he just gets struck by a random lightning bolt, as if he hasn't dodged Electro's shots while having 14 broken bones in the first game, while also fighting the Vulture. This was a pretty bad display for both Peter and Miles so far, and it only gets worse. I do want to note one thing about the Iron Spider arms used in the game.
Looks like we got competition.
Spider-Man can create successful Doc Ock arms that work like nanotech, but Doc Ock failed for years even when Peter was around to help. He basically just perfected the flaws present with the neural interface. But how exactly did he do that? Otto wouldn't have left his updated designs at the lab since he thought Peter was stealing from him, and Peter didn't even have the money to invest in the same resources Otto did. In fact, most of his efforts were towards freelancing at the Bugle, as established in Miles' game. Afterwards was when he was looking for a job as a teacher, where he got fired right away, while he's still struggling financially. So where did he get the money to achieve this? Otto had to rely on grants to even fund his work. Miles and Peter watch over the raft transfer. For some reason, Scorpion was allowed to keep his tail without it being cut off. Even if the suit was fused to Gargan's body, you can still remove the dangerous tail. Peter gets grabbed by one of the Vulture drones, despite being shown to dodge them on other occasions. Miles is also able to do this despite being less experienced in combat. Even if Peter couldn't dodge them, he shouldn't be struggling with one in the air due to the fact he can punch it to break it. Considering Miles can do this to multiple Vulture drones, I don't know why Peter can't do the same. It of course happens again on Peter's way down, despite being able to dodge Electro while having 14 broken bones. Peter and Miles attempt to remove these harpoons that the hunters have shot into the ship. It's fairly unbelievable that Peter can't rip that out, considering he's able to lift cranes, stop trains, and lift trucks. But what's even worse is that Miles, who can hold a collapsing bridge together, couldn't pull this out with Peter's help. They're both pulling it at the same time and failing. They are unbelievably nerfed. Another thing, why not target the people shooting these harpoons instead of the harpoons themselves? Even if you removed them, they can just retract them and shoot again. Miles gets into a fight with Scorpion, then gets injected by his poison, similar to what we saw in Spider-Man PS4. Now, if we recall that game, Scorpion specifically let Peter experience the nightmare because Otto wanted him to, but Scorpion would have ended it himself.
I'd end it now, but Octavius is paying, and he wants to torture you, which I respect.
So, why doesn't he end it now with the other Spider-Man, especially since Peter survived this in the end? Getting rid of one of them for good would make things easier for Scorpion once he escapes. Also, Miles never cured himself the same way Peter did, so how did he even survive? Later in the fight, Miles webs a propeller to prevent it from damaging the platform and hurting civilians. The propeller breaks through the webs, and for some reason Peter is focused on lifting the rubble off this one person, as opposed to webbing up the propeller like Miles just did. How can Miles think of this but not Peter? He also for some reason grabs everyone with his hands instead of using his webs to hold them in place. Peter was made into an idiot just so there's an excuse for the story to point out Miles isn't helping when he should. But Peter shouldn't be this stupid.
Nice cloaking tech. Mind if I take a look under the hood?
Why not destroy the tech before they activate it? Why not web the hunters so they don't do anything? Miles approaches Black Cat and sees her leave the sanctum with a portal wand. I don't know why he doesn't web the wand out of her hand the moment she tries using it. It even fails, so Miles should just be able to grab it from her so she can't use it. But he just stands there, giving her the chance to use it properly, Then he goes after her. It's like the game just paused his brain. It's also really strange that Black Cat can use the portal to make it to the Arctic, but not Paris where she needs to be.
If only I could figure out how to go more than 10 feet with this thing.
I mean, you just did minutes ago. Miles also just lands in front of Black Cat and just stands there instead of taking the wand from her that she used very recklessly earlier, which I suppose fits with the rest of Miles' intelligence in this scene. It's also interesting how Wong takes the wand from Miles and says they owe him one, yet they don't do anything about an alien invasion in the third act, nor do any of the Avengers that we know exist, thanks to Avengers Tower and Taskmaster directly referencing them when discussing his past fights. Just getting this out of the way right here, right now. Peter dodges a series of nets at Coney Island and somehow gets trapped by one, despite being able to dodge consecutive hits from Electro while having 14 broken bones. This is yet another case of his reaction time being nerfed for no reason. Later in the fight, Peter struggles to lift the roller coasters as if he isn't strong enough to. Somehow. Let's not forget that he can stop speeding trucks, lift cranes, and stop helicopters from flying upwards, but he can't just lift these roller coasters high up. It's worse when a giant tower falls behind him, and he's able to stop that easily, but he can't lift these roller coasters higher.
I'm sorry!
And the cherry on top that proves he should be able to do this is that he doesn't just lift them both in the air at the end, he throws them high in the air, which means that if his strength was kept consistent, he would have just saved the riders immediately. There's also this weird moment.
I'm stuck!
Remember this reference to If This Be My Destiny in Spider-Man PS4? He can lift that, but he's stuck when even less stacks of rubble are onto him.
He is not Spider-Man. Think of his miserable performance here tonight. The last time I fought Spider-Man, he was formidable, powerful, agile, almost invincible. This time he was ridiculous.
Later, MJ has a plan to investigate the hunters. I don't know why she didn't call first before entering the hunters' van. If she knew the hunters were there, she would have told them first before doing anything. She could get caught in the van and not have the chance to tell them. She also has to be really quiet here because the hunters can show up unexpectedly. This eventually leads to a confrontation with Kraven, where Peter gets stabbed by Kraven, then almost dies because of this. Now to start off, this guy isn't a novice. He has been Spider-Man for 10 years. I expect him to account for Kraven pulling up and stabbing him, not to mention his spider sense and enhanced reflexes, not to mention that stabbing him like this shouldn't even kill him, since Fisk was able to cut him like a pork sausage and MJ still saved him.
Fisk cut Peter open like a pork sausage with this the first time they fought. Pete got away, collapsed in my yard half dead, and I had to steal my dad's car to drive him to the ER. The first of many Nurse MJ moments.
Not to mention that Peter can walk off a deep cut into his shoulder by Otto, but apparently one stab to his stomach is a killer blow. Regular humans in real life can survive this. This is a world where the physics are upscaled, and this is Spider-Man. How is this about to kill him? Spider-Man is now in the black suit, and he swings over to a Kraven goon, but can't dodge a bolt of lightning shot at him. This is especially inexcusable. Not only did Spider-Man dodge Electro shots with 14 broken bones, but Spider-Man is in the black suit now. He should be buffed in the black suit, not nerfed. How do you nerf Spider-Man in the black suit?
Makes me a better Spider-Man. Now that's spider strength.
Also, he has tendrils he can use to defend himself, yet he doesn't, and allows himself to get slammed into, despite being able to react to lightning. Spider-Man confronts Kraven at the church and gets put into a chokehold by Kraven. I guess he, once again, forgot the numerous tendrils he can use to defend himself. And when Kraven takes note of the bell, Spider-Man takes the serum from Kraven so he can act right now, yet he just stands there and allows Kraven to hit the bell again without webbing him or using his tendrils. Again, how can Spider-Man be nerfed in the black suit?
Makes me a better Spider-Man.
Yeah, I could say I'm Captain America, but it doesn't put wings on my head.
Okay, before we get down to business, there's something I have to tell you. I'm fresh out of honey.
You didn't learn your lesson last time. That's cool. We can give you a refresher course.
This is Spider-Man in the black suit, and he gets smacked around by a guy in a teddy bear outfit slowly walking towards him. Why is he nerfed in the black suit?
Makes me a better Spider-Man.
Peter eventually finds out that Norman had an off-the-books lab for Connors down in the sewers, but we also had to recall that he needed to do a deal with Fisk to get a secret lab to work on Devil's Breath.
Have you learned anything from that Devil's Breath file?
Yeah, get this. A few years ago, Osborn came to Fisk and asked him to build a lab, but to keep it hidden from regulators.
Secret lab? For Devil's Breath?
If it's as dangerous as we think it is, I can see why.
If Norman had a secret lab in the sewers this entire time, why did he need to do a deal with Fisk? Why didn't he contain the project in the sewers if he was able to do this with the symbiote? And as far as the symbiote itself, the first game initially led me to believe that the symbiote wasn't necessarily a cure, but rather something that slowed down the effects of Harry's disease so he can be bought time. But if the symbiote is apparently a working cure, why didn't Norman invest in this as opposed to Devil's Breath? Not only is the symbiote not at risk of causing a pandemic, but studies would show that they can contain it due to its weakness to loud noises. It's also just better if the symbiote can easily heal any illness or injury rather than Harry's specific illness. Peter chases the lizard once again, and this eventually makes it outside. For some reason, he doesn't use his tendrils to defend himself when Lizard is trying to bite him. He doesn't use them to try curing Lizard for the first time. He repeatedly forgets this can be used against him. Peter just stands there and allows him to take the shot, and he also allows Lizard to fall down instead of picking him up so he doesn't potentially land near civilians. He also allows Kraven to take another shot instead of stopping him. Again, Spider-Man should be performing better in the black suit, not worse. Only at the end of the fight, he finally remembers to use multiple tendrils. We get a flashback to Connor's first seeing the symbiote, and his first action was to look at it up close instead of having it contained properly, as scientists regularly do, because that's the smart way to handle alien material. Not only could the alien cause an infectious disease, but it also could latch onto Connors like it does in the scene. This causes them to shoot his arm off when they didn't even need to do that. They just needed to shoot at the symbiote's center mass so it stops grabbing him. This is the origin for Dr. Connors as the Lizard? It was turned into a nonsensical flow of events.
Well, that's just lazy writing.
This also makes me wonder, why did they allow Harry to leave before properly investigating how the symbiote works on him? You can release him from the container and run studies on him, and the symbiote, which clearly has a mind of its own judging by how it grabbed Connors like that. What if it behaves out of Harry's control? The symbiote would be tested for weaknesses, and sound would be noticed. Connors would know to have a sonar device for if it goes wrong, and have constant surveillance on Harry's vitals. Harry can be out of the tank with these precautions in place. MJ sees the hunters arrive at the house. For some reason, she doesn't call Miles immediately for help when they're surrounding the house. She does so later after she leaves the house, but she should have done it right away. How does Norman not know about Spider-Man holding the symbiote? Spider-Man's new suit obviously behaves like the symbiote. Connors would tell Norman, Harry would too. Norman would start a manhunt against Spider-Man like he did in the first game to get the suit back. Is he just unaware of the fact that Harry is suddenly sick again, and there's a black suit Spider-Man wears that functions like the symbiote? Later in the game, Miles fights Martin Lee at Kraven's arena.
There's no escape.
I tried.
Okay, but Spider-Man can swing and you can't, so why doesn't Lee point out that Spider-Man could escape when we know he's reformed by this point and doesn't want to fight Spider-Man? Now, I've got a random question for you all. Who is faster, a dying man with a cane, or a 10-year-long Spider-Man?
Yes, quite the puzzler.
According to this scene, a dying man with a cane is fast enough to damage a container Peter is holding when Peter would have every reason to protect that with his life. This is yet another nerf. And then Peter gets knocked out by the symbiote without it even having a host because he hit the wall once, not even breaking through it. This is yet another nerf. But then, Venom throws Spider-Man through a wall and pipes, but that somehow knocks out Peter until the sunrise. Fisk put Peter through similar attacks in the first game, but Peter could keep fighting. This is again another nerf. Venom then arrives at Peter's home. Take your wild stab in the dark what's gonna happen to Peter in the scene. Peter just stands there, like he's not even prepared to counter while MJ is in a stance ready to react. She reacts faster than Peter by blocking Venom's hit, when Peter would have been the one fast enough to move MJ out of the way no matter what she did. He is faster, he can react to Electro, and Peter gets knocked down by a fridge momentarily. Why would this guy get knocked down by a fridge? This creates a massive plot hole in Across the Spider-Verse. If Insomniac Spider-Man is this weak and ineffective of a hero, then how did Miguel ever think it was a good idea to bring him onto Spider Society? If he fought the Renaissance Vulture, he would have gotten knocked down by a painting and caused the destruction of a universe. Kick him out, Miguel. Fire him.
Go home, Peter.
You need to know. Harry's gone.
Host and symbiote are perfectly fused.
I'll find a way to save him.
You can't. But you can still stop the symbiote.
How? by killing the host.
How does Kurt know that the host and symbiote are perfectly fused? How would you even know what that means without even experiencing this? There was never a time the symbiote was perfectly fused, and all Connors could see is Venom just being Venom. Venom wouldn't just let him study him. This just seems like a forced way of establishing the conflict for Peter. Venom tries to take down Miles in the final battle, and Miles is somehow able to toss a sound bomb in his mouth to stop him. I guess Miles can apparently contend with Venom's strength, despite the fact that Peter can barely contend with him unless he has the anti-Venom suit. Apparently he forgets to use his tendrils on Miles when actively struggling with him. Apparently he doesn't know how to close his mouth to avoid stuff from being tossed in there. Miles and Peter web onto Venom, and apparently he doesn't know how to cut off their web lines. He shoots goop at Miles to knock him off, but doesn't do the same to Peter. He allows Peter to latch onto him despite knowing that he has a direct counter to the symbiote, when he could just separate Peter with the tendrils and throw him off. This allows Peter to rip open Venom's mask for a moment. Venom loses the rock because while struggling, he forgets that he has the tendrils that can grab Peter, Miles, and the rock. The best part of the story is when Otto tells Norman that he's glad his son got ruined, because that is probably the most in-character thing anyone in the story has ever said or done. Otto still has the proper spite and hatred towards Norman, and the bitter attitude he has developed in the first game, so at least he's in character, and his inclusion makes sense.
Next time, try writing a better story!
This story was a mess. The various character assassinations, plot holes, breaks in the world building, and power scaling inconsistencies do a real number on the integrity of the story. The execution of the story's themes are damaged by many of the character problems, alongside many unsatisfactory resolutions to character arcs and plotlines. This is the worst story in the Insomniac Spider-Man series, and one of the worst Spider-Man stories in an adaptation. The only stories I can think of that are worse are No Way Home and Edge of Time.
You're saying the lives of a billion strangers?
That might be a hot take, but you know, if you stick around for this long, why not stick around for more? Thank you for watching this video, subscribe to the channel if you want more of this content, let me know what I should review next. I'll see you later, in the bright future.